Hey,
Hello,
welcome.
hello.
Hey, it's Funny Friday. So you're in Miami? What are you doing in Miami?
Oh, I have a baby shower to go to for a good friend's daughter, somebody that our kids grew up together. So I get to see my grand kitty, that the kitty we found on Super Bowl Sunday, has been adopted here. Oh, and wait a second.
Gorgonzola or something, right?
Yes.
Or
Oh my
Gouda?
gosh.
Gouda? Gouda or Gorgonzola?
Gorgonzola Gonzalez, or Gigi for short. I'm gonna,
Aw.
yeah,
Aw.
just a little cutie. She has not quite sure if she's remembering me, so she is.
Oh, where is
Wait,
she? Hold her up.
I'm gonna see if you can you see her?
Oh, there she is. So sweet.
She is such a cutie.
She is very sweet.
Such a cute.
Very cute.
Oh
Oh,
my
what
goodness.
a sweet little baby.
She is, she's like 2 pounds. She's the tiniest little thing. So, but
Very
I am
cool.
so glad that, 'cause she's just so cute that they love her and she's got a nice home. You always worry about that when you find a little animal, you're like, oh my gosh. And
That's how
it
we,
was way too much for me. I will tell you that I was not prepared for even one night of having like a 4-week-old kitten was like, I
yeah.
slept I slept for a day after they came and took her.
Yeah. All the cats we've ever had have been those type of cats where you find them as a little kitten stranded somewhere, flea bitten, and you just take them home and you put them in the sink and you wash them and get them all cleaned up and get their little tummies all full. And then you're like, I guess you're staying.
Yes,
So
I
cute.
think since I moved to Florida in the 80s, every animal I've had has been a discovery like that. So I had even a ferret. I had a ferret where somebody was like, "Could you watch my ferret?" And then they never came back for it.
That's good.
But it was cute. Had a lot of. It was colored a lot like Gigi, the same kind of coloring, that gray and white. It was tiny, and
maybe it's
it
maybe it's your ferret reincarnated.
reincarnated. That ferret was great, potty trained and everything. Like, it was litter box trained. I
Nice.
had a little harness. It would walk down the street. I lived in the Grove at the time, and it was just, it was fun.
Look at that lady walking her ferret.
And then
Well,
somebody goes, "Oh, could you watch my ferret for me?" I'm like, "No, no, I'm done watching ferrets. Thank you."
yeah,
But when
right.
I saw their ferret was like one of those big ones. I was like, "Oh no, I prefer the cute petite ones." That one looked more like I would sleep with one eye open.
And what do they eat again?
Right? That was a question on my mind. I mean, it was as big as like a big fat raccoon. It was huge. I was like, no, I don't think my apartment's big enough for that.
Oh, talk about raccoons. Misty showed me a picture, I don't know where online, of I'm not going to remember the word right. You know when you lose your hair? What's
Yes.
the name for that?
Hair loss.
But anyway, I forget what it's called. There's a name for it where your hair just starts falling out all over. And this raccoon had it. And it was, you know what, raccoons? A hairless raccoon doesn't look anything like you would think it would. Their little hands are black,
Oh wow.
their bodies are white, and they look like a big gunny sack. They look like they shouldn't even be a body because it has no form. It's just, like I said, it's kind of a gunny sack. It just has no form to it. And then its face, it doesn't, you would think where the mask is.
Right.
No mask.
Huh.
Their
I
ears,
wouldn't have known.
ears were black.
I'm surprised, like if their hands, their paws, and
Well,
their ears are black, that the skin around their mask wouldn't be black too.
not this one. Nope. No, it was crazy. You couldn't see his tail though, because I asked her. I said, "It's too bad you can't see the tail because you would think it'd be striped because their tails are striped. But if the face doesn't have a mask, it probably has a rat tail."
Are they related to lemurs? I wonder.
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know. But
any biologists out there care to chime in?
On animal things, because I've been following the Southwest Florida Eagles since Harriet kind of, I've always followed them, but not as intently. Harriet, the female, disappeared about a month ago. And so I've been watching to see how the dad did, how he's going to raise these little eaglets, 2 little eaglets that were considerably younger than you would want them to be for a single parent, right?
Is that the one where the mate never came back for?
Yeah, that's
yes, I saw that.
Yeah, so it's been really interesting to watch, and they you said something that made me think of them because what I've been watching is them eat, because that's important that they get fed, and so the dad has had to like do double duty to get enough food in to keep these little eaglets going, and they're so funny. But I know what it was. So they eat, pretty much anything. Eagle will eat anything. And
omnivore, is that the right word? Omnivore?
Yeah, I guess that they lean more towards the meat eaters though. But when I say eat almost anything, they'll eat like carrion, birds, fish, roadkill, whatever they can find, And I was watching them eat. They got a squirrel recently. So I was watching the 2 little ones are now about 60 days. So they're old enough to kind of eat on their own. So, and it kind of keeps them, it's funny because it kind of keeps them entertained. You think about your own kids and you're like, oh yeah, the days when you could give them something and they could entertain themselves for hours. So that's what they were doing is they were, trying to eat this squirrel. It was their first shot at it. So I was taking them some time. And then finally the dad came in towards the end to like make sure they ate all the parts, that they just didn't pick off the meat, that they ate everything. So he starts handing them like the leg bones, and these little boogers would swallow down a leg bone. And I'm like, those are awful big bones going in. Where do they go? I'm thinking, where do these bones go? What happens to these bones? So I Googled it, or did search on it. And the search came back that they have stomach acid that's similar to a battery. Like our car
wow,
battery.
So it dissolves it.
It just dissolves the crap out of it. And that's how they get their calcium for their bones. But yeah, and the little one time ate the end of this end of this fish. It was like 2/3 of it. And the end of this fish that it's eating is almost as big as it is, right? Somehow it opens up its mouth and it puts it in the body part first, not the tail end first. And he swallows it in. And he's swallowing it and swallowing it. I'm like, dude, there is no way you can possibly, I have no idea where you're going to be putting that thing because that thing's huge that you're putting in your mouth. And he's going and going and going. And it finally gets to where he can't go. It won't go any further. And he has these 2 little the tails sticking out of his mouth. Just the tips of the tail. So he's walking around like.
Oh my God. That's hilarious. Oh my God.
But like within like minutes, it went down. Its acid must have just
Wow.
churned
Yeah,
away.
that I had no idea about that. I speaking of birds, I was watching a video on the condor,
Hmm.
and they had I guess it's in the Andes, and a lady was sitting on the wall, and a condor was next to her, and it was bigger than the woman. I was shocked.
Oh yeah, the Detroit Zoo where I grew up, they had a condor, and oh, those things are huge, huge. And then you understand why they have to take off of, like when they go to take flight, they have to like do it off of like mountains and stuff.
Right? How do they live in a zoo then? They just never get to fly anymore, I would imagine.
No, 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 they don't. They usually the zoo ones are usually rehabbed birds. You know, ones that have been injured can't live in the wild anymore. So certain zoos will take them on. And yeah, this one was in the bird. We had a bird house type of thing, but he had his own little place where he hung out, and you know, he hung
Yeah,
out like
I
that.
didn't realize they were that big. I mean, I knew they were big birds, but
Yeah,
I was
they'd be
like,
like
man,
10. He
that
said
could
like a
come
10
down
foot.
and pick me up and I'd be gone.
Yeah, I think they got like a 10-foot wingspan.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's
And the
amazing.
owls, you know, out there, the owl strikes. Sorry about the eagle thing. My family has been like, enough with the eagles. But there's been a lot of owl strikes at night, obviously, because owls are up at night. Owl strikes on the one new eagle that's been hanging around the nest lately. And in the middle of the night, they'll show it where all of a sudden this owl comes out of nowhere, boom, and hits that eagle and knocks it off its branch while it's sleeping. And those owls, I think they said their wingspan's like 4 or 5 feet.
I have a video somewhere in our front yard. There was I guess it was an osprey or a hawk. It was one of the bigger hunting birds, and an owl. And they were arguing over the branch. And let me tell you what, that owl won. That owl was not budging for anything.
Those things are mean. They are mean.
Because I heard all this commotion, and I'm like, what the heck is going on out there? And luckily got a little bit of video. This was probably a year or two ago, but I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, they are just that. He
I
was
know.
not budging.
You really don't think an owl, they always seem like they're just sitting on a branch, hanging out, waiting for a mouse. But
Reading a book. No.
Yeah, right. Wearing glasses, telling you to buy new ones.
Right, right.
But no, they're pretty. They are quite the animal, quite the bird. Yeah. So they'll knock the eagles off their limbs at night, and then and they attack people. I think we talked about that before. Owls will attack people. They attack them on the back of the head.
I'm going to be a little bit more cautious walking around the yard. Just a little bit more cautious.
Especially if there's an owl in the neighborhood at night. At night during their hunting, that's when you want to.
I'm thinking we'll see a little bit more because I was just noticing that the bunnies are coming back out. We didn't see any bunnies for a couple of months, and now they're like hopping around. I guess because it's going to be Easter soon.
Yeah, hippity hoppity. Hey, we've got a little friend in the house. I don't know how you are with yours. House geckos.
Oh, love them.
Love them too. And we had a little guy. He kept showing up as we'd open the front door. He'd be right there. I mean, they're only like, well, this guy's little. I mean, they get a little bit bigger, but he's about, and they're so funny because they got the little hands that are like. So he was running around by the front door. And then the other day, a couple nights ago, I'm in the kitchen getting ready to do something. All of a sudden, across the counter. I'm like, oh, I'm like, whoa, what is that? You know, because you're here in Florida, your first thing is it's a cockroach. You know, even though you have, you know,
Yeah, because they can get that big.
Yeah, even though you have pest control, you know, there's what, 20 different varieties of cockroaches down here, you know, and inadvertently one will show up, you know. And I like to know it was a little house gecko. And
anything that eats mosquitoes is welcome in my home and in my yard. If you're a mosquito eater, come on over.
They eat lots of things. So yeah,
I saw my first mosquito yesterday. We were out in the back, and when we came in, I saw it buzzing around underneath the belly of Tarzan. Oh. So I keep a towel by the door, and we ourselves before we come in the house. But I'm like,
yeah.
They were gone for quite a while.
Yeah, they were. They were. Now that you mentioned it, I thought Collier County was just doing an over exuberant job of pest control.
I have that app that tells you, or they tell you, you can when they're going to spray.
I did too. I did too. Yeah, and they, you know, they also hand out mosquito fish.
We see that. We don't need them because our koi do that for us.
Oh, okay. All right.
But yes, very, very important. Yeah, it's the season coming up. I've been enjoying the cold, even though I bundle up and I have a scarf and hat on at 70 degrees. And I'm like,
I know, I see some of those videos and I'm like, where the heck is she? She looks like she's in the far north. I'm like, it can't be here in Florida because it's 80 degrees out there. You're out there all bundled up. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Okay. I remember when I moved to Florida and it was in January and it was like 60 degrees and I had my bathing suit on and I'm looking at people like, what is wrong with those people? They have a coat on. And, you know, 40 years later.
I get that, you know, I understand all that, but still 70.
70 is still coat weather when you got to be out for more than 15 minutes.
I guess so. Because I took Misty to work the other day and ran out the front door. What was it, a couple weeks ago, and it must have been 60, low 60s. And we got out the front door, and I was like, "Whoo, it's a little cool. Maybe I should have grabbed that coat." I'm right? Like, I can do this. I can tough it out.
Seriously. Did you put the heat on in the car? That's what I want to know.
I turned the temperature up.
Oh,
it is one of those automatic things. So right. I turned it up so that it would warm. So yeah, it warmed it up. I did turn on the seat heater.
Oh, I was going to ask you. Oh, man.
And the heated steering wheel.
I think we, particularly in Southwest Florida, are probably the most spoiled. Like, if it's 76 degrees, we turn the air off. And it's 77, it has to be on.
Oh, you know.
If it's 72, the heat is on.
I have air-conditioned seats in my car. That was like when I got this one, and it's a used one. That was, you know, my class.
We're interrupting this. We're interrupting this.
Hi, baby. Aww.
So cute.
So when I tell people, when you're creating and you want to manifest, you got to have your checklist of things you want. And that was on my checklist. My car had to have the ventilated seats, you know, because down here it gets warm. And in fact, what were we watching? Misty was saying, we were watching something, or she was reading something. Maybe it was, she was on Reddit. There's a subreddit that she's on that's called Ask an American. And it's fun because you don't really, we just go through our lives. We think everybody lives like this, right? And we just do our thing. And all of a sudden you'll get these people that they'll ask crazy questions, and one Misty said, she goes, oh, this one's kind of sad. She goes, this one says, if you don't use bars on your windows, how do you stay safe? And it was like, ooh, that's a little indicative of where you're from. I'm so sorry to hear that. One of the major responses was Second Amendment. Second Amendment.
Yeah, sometimes that backfires on you, though. Oh my gosh. When I lived in Miami, most of the places I lived had bars on the windows.
Yeah, it depends. I'm from Detroit.
Yeah, right.
They actually had to tell people you need to have an emergency, some way for those bars to open, or you can't get out in an emergency. They had to do an egress thing,
Right.
People
you have to have a lock on them. If they're in your bedroom, in Miami anyway, it's the law that it has to have a lock.
Well, they had to do it on the front doors too, because people would lock themselves in and not be able to get. I'm saying they literally couldn't get out of their houses at all. They would lock themselves.
How would you not be able to get out of your front door because you'd have a lock on the bars?
It's the kind of lock you would use. If you use a lock that, it's like your front door. Some people, they put in a deadbolt that needs a key.
Right.
So if you use a key like lock, and then you take the key out, in an emergency, you don't have the key.
True.
So how do you get out?
Yeah, I had a little hook somewhere around the window where it couldn't be seen from the outside that I just kept that key on for my bedroom.
Yeah, I remember some countries I've visited where they have a wall around, like a little, like about I don't know, shoulder height maybe around. And then when they make the wall, they put broken glass in it. And there's all these shards sticking up. I'm like,
all you need is a good blanket, though. I mean, there's ways around everything, which is sad to think.
These are world countries. I don't know if blankets are if they even have blankets to throw over a chunk of glass.
Yeah, it's sad. We are lucky that we live someplace that is a little less likely to, just depending where you live. So let's get back to funny.
Right. I was going to say, so the reason I brought this up was because they went ahead and one of the questions was, what's it like to have 4 seasons? So people were, so obviously the person who's asking is from a place that has no, has a season. And
Florida.
Well, Florida's got its seasons, right? So that's where this conversation went. Okay. So you had people in the thing saying that you had to depend on where, because you're asking American, you had to have to know where the American's at, because they were like, this part of the country gets this part of the country gets that. And then they said, and then there's Florida. And then everybody was making their season jokes for Florida. There's, the hot and hotter one. There's the, tourist and no tourists. There's the changing of the, it's fall when the license plates change color.
Yeah.
All those
when
kind
you
of
see the car carriers.
Carrier fire, there's fire season down here. Right now we're going into fire season. And one of the somebody put, and then there's the I think somebody said, how hot does it get? Somebody described it the best I've ever heard it. They said, and then there's the months where it's Satan's it's
furnace.
Like right there. No, it's more descriptive than that. It was Satan's balls. That's, I think it was. There was Satan's balls in summer. And it was like, I was like, yeah,
I would tend to agree with that. I would
that kind
tend
of
to
describes
agree
it
with
really well, doesn't it?
that. Yeah, yes. That's the
Mentioned,
ultimate sweaty season.
yeah, hot, really hot and really sweaty. That's Florida in the summer, in Southwest Florida.
Yes.
Southwest Florida.
That's where you know if somebody is local, is if there's only like a 2-month window where they'll actually go to the beach and get in the water. Oh, whoops. Hey, I'm going to have to jump off today early. I'm sorry. Somebody's knocking at the door and not my abode, so I'm going to just be
Okay, well,
thoughtful
you
like
go
that.
find out. This is Gwen Peterson and Denise Flood, Funny Fridays, and we'll see you next Friday. Take care.
See?
Have fun.
Bye.
Bye-bye.